Hi, I'm Rob Hampton, and I was getting all set up to shoot my new fingerstyle guitar course today and had all the lights set up and everything, and then I realized I wanted to restring my guitar so that it sounded its best when I started teaching, and I thought, well, why don't I shoot a video showing you how I restring my guitar. This is my mom's old 1952 Martin. I've restrung it many times. I've learned how to play guitar on this in high school. You might notice my hands are all bandaged up. This morning I was cleaning up after the kids and fumbled a glass and caught it as it went into the corner of our counter, and all superficial wounds. But anyway, if you just didn't want to startle you if you see the gore as I'm working on my guitar. You will see that I'm working on my lap. Normally I would lay out a clean towel on a table to work on my guitar. But I've just got it on my lap today so that the camera angle is better. So the stuff you'll need is you don't really need much. When you watch instructional videos on how to restring your guitar, it seems like you need a bunch of gear. Really, all you need at the bare minimum is a surface to work on and a new pair of strings. But a tool that will be very handy is wire cutters. It will make your job quicker at the beginning, and also you'll be able to trim the strings at the end instead of having to wind them up into little loops as I used to do in high school, because I wasn't prepared while I was restringing in high school. I was kind of restringing Raised by Wolves back then. You also will probably need some kind of device to get your bridge pins out. I'm going to be using a screwdriver today. There are specific tools built for this, but for some reason my bridge pin remover doesn't fit on these bridge pins. So I'm just going to gently use a screwdriver. You just kind of need to be careful not to gouge your guitar. Okay, so first step is remove your old strings. And so just loosen each string. I actually just got started a little bit here, so I'm almost done. I always like to play my strings as I'm turning the tuning machines. You should be able to feel whether you're tightening or loosening the strings, but I like to have sound confirmation. I don't want to be tightening a string and then have it surprise and break on me, or, put too much tension on the neck. So now they're all nicely flopping in the wind. They're not under much tension, and so they're not going to go flying out when I cut them. So next, just cut them in the middle of the length of the string, like so. And then you can unwind them from the tuning pegs here. You may need to kind of nudge them around to get them out of the hole. Just gonna lay these on the floor here. And strings can be sharp, so you really want to try to not gouge your fretting fingertips. As I've done many times, it's a drag. Especially the first and second strings, they're like little hypodermic needles. There we go. All right, so now for the bridge pins. As I said, I'm going to be using a screwdriver, and I'm just going to carefully lean it against a neighboring bridge pin and just gently lever up the pin, set it aside, and the string should come right out. There's a ball end on each of these strings that gets slotted into like a slot in a wood block down there. It gets caught in there. The bridge pin just kind of pushes the ball into that slot. The bridge pin actually is not the main thing responsible for keeping the string in there, so it doesn't need to be jammed in there really tight or anything. I like restringing my guitar. It's kind of meditative. This last one, you don't have anything to lever off of. Oh, it just came out my fingers. Great. Okay. Once you've removed all your strings, then you can take a damp cloth. I used to use a product like Dunlop 65. But it really seems like consensus is even a really nice guitar. This is an old 1952 Martin. It's an antique. A cloth damped with a little water is usually the best thing for the finish. And so I'm just going to wipe the face of the guitar here, get like the thumbprints off. Obviously, this guitar has seen many years, got run over by a car, and miraculously repaired by my guitar student, John. One of the best gifts I ever got. Boy, this thing was filthy. I'm going to scrub the fretboard here a little bit just to get the schmuda off. Just trying to get the filth off, but you don't want to scrub too much. You don't want to get the mojo off or the funk. Those are important things on your guitar. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to put on the new strings. I'm putting on D'Addario EJ16s. They're light gauge acoustic guitar strings. I used to use medium, but was told that especially with an older guitar like this, you should put on light gauge strings, a little less tension on it. And also as the, tendons get older and everything, light gauge strings are a little easier to play. And the difference in tone, I think, is not even noticeable. So I'm going with light gauge, and these are phosphor bronze strings. That refers to the material used in the winding. Different winding materials have slightly different tone. This is kind of a warm, balanced tone, and it's just what I'm used to. Okay, and then to know which string to put on, there's a color coding system that D'Addario uses. I think a lot of string manufacturers use this. And I'm just going to start with the 6th string. You can really start with any string. The 6th string has a brass ball end on it. And so I'm going to look for the really thick one, the brass ball end. When strings come out of the package, they're probably grouped in pairs. The 5th and 6th string are paired up, 4th and 3rd, and so on. And so I'm going to untangle the 5th and 6th strings, grab the one with the brass end, cue up the red one over here. That's the one I'm going to need next. Stick it in the appropriate bridge hole, grab a bridge pin. Sometimes bridge pins will have a little groove in the side of them, and that groove should be facing where the ball end of your string is. In my case, this bridge pin does not have a groove. And one kind of tricky thing when you put in the bridge pin is if you can you won't be able to see this, but if you can imagine the pin going in alongside your string, when it goes in, it's possible for the end of the pin to catch on the end of the ball, so they're kind of oriented like that. And what you want instead is the bridge pin to be like alongside the ball as it goes in. And so just try to imagine like how far that ball is in, and when you push the bridge pin in, if you like feel the string tug down a little bit, or it just seems like the string is too far down in there, pull it out and reposition. Basically, you just don't want to push the ball in really far in before you put the bridge pin in, so it doesn't catch on the end. If it catches on the end, then it's going to pull the bridge pin out as you put tension on the string. It's not what you want. At least on this guitar, I can also see that the bridge pin is seated correctly, because toward the right here near the ball end, do you see how the winding has been like wound around again in order to secure the ball end of the string? I can see the very tip of that extra winding peeking out of the hole next to the bridge pin, and I just know this guitar that confirms that the string is up far enough and the ball end hasn't caught on the edge of the bridge pin, or the end of the bridge pin, excuse me. Now, while you've got your strings off, I realize my strings are on here. I shot this later in the video and then I'm gonna stick it in earlier. Anyway, forgot to show you, one useful thing you can do when you've got your strings off is to take a mechanical pencil and scribble into the nut slot for each of your 6 strings. Graphite is a great lubricant for your strings, and if you've ever tuned up your guitar and you've heard a little pinging sound, that ping is the sound of the string that has bound in the nut slot. It's gotten stuck, and then all of a sudden it releases and slips, and it makes that high-pitched pinging sound. That friction means the string is having a hard time sliding through the nut slot, obviously. And that can make it harder to tune. If you can imagine when you're tuning your guitar and you're cranking on your tuning machine and nothing's happening, you've probably had that happen before. Sometimes it's because you're turning the wrong tuning knob, but also sometimes it's because the string is binding there and this part of the string is getting tighter and tighter. This part of the string is not being affected at all, the vibrating part of the string, the part of the string you hear. And so you're not getting any change in pitch, and then all of a sudden, ping, it slips through the nut slot. You've overshot your pitch sometimes, and now you've got to like go back down again. So it can be a very frustrating process of tuning your strings. So some lubrication in the nut slots can really help that. Here's the tricky part, I think the trickiest part of restringing your guitar. Okay, first you want to find the appropriate tuning machine for your string. This is the 6-string tuning machine. And I'm going to turn the tuning knob so that the hole that's going through the bridge pin is like running north and south, running parallel with the fretboard, so that I can just go straight through the post like this, okay? So that's step 1. And then next, you want to pull out some slack on your string about like this. It's about like 2 inches or so, so that you can get a couple windings around on the post when you tighten up the string, and that'll secure the string to the post. Next, you want to put a little kink in the tail of the string. The tail is the part of the string that's sticking out the other end of the post, to kind of mark where you want the string to come through the post and to kind of help keep it from slipping through. And then here's the tricky part. So we're going to call this kind of center line in the headstock the inside of the headstock, okay? And what we want to do is wrap the tail of the string around the post toward the inside of the headstock, as opposed to this way. See how the tail is like pointing away from the center of the headstock if I come around like this? So you want to be coming around like this toward the center of the headstock, and you'll see why in a second. We're going to bring it around, and we're going to bring it under the main part of the string here, okay? So we've brought it around under the string, and then we're going to pull it up, putting a second kink in it, like so. Now, this part can sometimes feel like you need like 3 hands to do. What I do is I grab this part of the string with my fingers to like keep it under tension, so that everything doesn't start flopping around and sliding through the headstock, or the pin. And I'm gonna brace the tail with my thumb. I'm gonna kind of pinch it against the post so that everything stays in place. So I'm like pulling on the string, pushing against the post, and now I'm gonna start winding. And I want to wind so that this part of the string continues to run along the inside of the post. In other words, the side of the post that's closest to the center of the headstock. And what happens when I do that, as I bring it around, see how it pins down the tail? I'm creating like this knot that locks the string in place. Now, if you didn't do this, at least the wound strings would probably stay in place anyway, but the unwound strings can slip through fairly easily, and so this ensures that the string is locked in place. And then as you continue to wind, if you've got enough slack, you're going to get like a second winding started, and you want this winding to go around below your first winding, like so. As the string gets tighter, you want to bring the string down into the appropriate nut slot, keep tightening, and then as soon as you can get a pitch out of the string, you can let go. Now it's under enough tension so that you don't have to babysit it anymore. And then just tighten it up a little bit. This can be a trouble spot for beginners restringing their guitar. They tighten the string too much. Just keep it nice and low. Something like that. And I'd like to give it a good wiggle right now just to make sure everything is secure. And then when I'm confident that I've done the string right, then I get the wire cutters and I trim them really close to the post. Pro tip, if your strings come looped up individually and you can't tell easily the difference between two different gauges of strings. This often happens with like the first and second string. Maybe you're at a gig, this has happened to me, and you broke a string and it's dark back there and you can't see the ball end clearly. Give it a little squeeze like this and you'll be able to feel which one offers more resistance. I'm putting on the second string now, and I just want to highlight something. Now that I'm on the other side of the headstock, I'm going to be coming around this direction to wrap the tail around, right? Because I'm still coming around to the inside of the headstock, like so. See how the string is approaching the post toward the inside of the headstock? Oh, look at that. I just pulled on this string and see this popped up. That means that the ball end might have been hung up on the end here. I'm just going to try pushing down the pin and see if it comes back up again. Okay, it looks like it's secure now. So it may have just kind of partially hung up but then slipped off. That feels secure, and I do see the winding of the string down there where it should be. So I think we're good to go now. But that's an example of what happens if that ball end gets caught on the end of your bridge pin. This first string is the toughest. It's all slinky and a little hard to control. Okay, now I've got all my strings on. Perfect. So next you want to give each string a nice good wiggle. So grab it at the 12th fret and wiggle it back and forth like this. Not too hard, not too soft. You don't want to do this with classical guitar strings, nylon strings. It will stretch and warp the strings in ungood ways. But steel strings, it's fine, and it breaks the strings in so that while you're playing, they don't constantly go out of tune. Because these strings are stretch quite a bit when they're new. And if you don't do this, you know, for the next 3 days or so, your guitar will go out of tune every few minutes if you don't stretch them. And then once you've stretched them all, you can tune them up to standard pitch. I always use another guitar. I don't have perfect pitch or anything. And just get in the general neighborhood of one of the strings on my other guitars. If you don't have the luxury of another guitar to tune to, and you're a member of Heartwood Guitar, you can go to the tuning lesson in Strum and Sing in 60 Days. there's a little series of buttons down below the video that have reference pitches that will help you tune by ear. You can also use a tuner, but your strings are going to be so wildly out of tune that it can be a little disorienting using a tuner. And so having some kind of reference pitch, a tuning fork if you've got one, and know how to use it, that will help you at least get in the general neighborhood where you can then use an electric tuner to tune your guitar up the rest of the way. Anyway, obviously they're not in perfect tune now, but now I'll pull out my tuning app and get them in great tune, and love the sound of new strings. It's always such a delight to play after playing on old crusty strings for a while. All right, I hope this video is helpful. Please leave a comment if you have any questions or anything to add with your own tips on how to restring your guitar. Take care. Hey, I hope you liked this lesson. If you did, please click the like button. You can also subscribe to my channel. And if you really want the good stuff, become a member of Heartwood Guitar. You can click the link below to learn more. Hope to see you there. Take care.